Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just for the record, I was told Brian Porter from Renaissance is on his way. He's stuck in traffic, but we're going to start right now. Item number 1.
Public participation and comment on proposed motions concerning amendments to the preferred developer agreement between the City of Bristol, Bristol Downtown Development Corporation, BDDC, and Renaissance Downtowns at Bristol, LLC, and to take any action as necessary.
Ron Giddix.
Ron Giddix, 89 Beach Street. Good evening, Council and the Mayor. I'm here today because Bristol Press advertised a potential cost to the city of $2 million for this initial phase. I think it was last Friday. Is that true?
We don't know what the number is yet until we know exactly what we're going to build. That's a pure speculation number at this point.
Okay.
I don't want to say yes, I don't want to say no, because if it's 2.5 or
obviously there is going to be some cost to the city.
If that motion passes, yes. We won't know until we make a motion.
And where would we get $2 million? We don't have that tucked away anywhere, do we?
We'll most likely find it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Richard Albright? Abridge, sorry.
Okay.
I think I did that last time.
Yeah, that's okay. With that name, you get used to it. Richard Abridge, 60 Michigan Avenue. I am not against allowing Renaissance Time to produce an acceptable private package, but both Goodman Marks and Goodman and York predicted failure. So I am concerned about unsolved problems. Renaissance hasn't raised the private funds needed, and their similar project in Nashua, New Hampshire couldn't either. So they are now seeking subsidized housing for Nashua. Private investors are interested in building in Bristol, just not as a part of Depot Square. Why not? First it was no low-income housing. So now they say workforce housing, including subsidized housing. The BDDC motion on 1014 states obtaining all means of funding to construct the first building on Depot Square. All means, including subsidized housing. Now it's the Connecticut City and Town Development Act funds. Do I hear no eminent domain to give private property to wealthier developers? What if the 18 to 20 additional buildings can't get private funding? Get the private funding first, then spend on infrastructure and the rest. We don't know if any buildings are going up, or how many, or where, or when. Taxpayer limits, please. No blank check. If Bristol pays for the infrastructure, who owns the property? Who pays for maintenance, liability, policing, lighting, snow? Total cost for Building B was estimated at $24 million, $22 for the building, $2 for infrastructure. Bristol will pay $2 million, private funds $2 million, and a mortgage loan $12.5 million. Where's that big private investment we've heard so much about? By the way, 2 plus 2 plus 12.5 isn't 24. There's a $7.5 million gap. Common Core math? Experts predicted the plan would fail. Now we hear about fast-track transportation. Are we helping low-income people from Hartford, New Britain, and Waterbury at the expense of Bristol taxpayers? Oh, we need subsidized housing because you didn't give us all the buildings. Like Nashua, New Hampshire. Bait, then switch. Solve the problems before spending millions. No blank check. Please get it right. Then give the citizens a binding vote. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Mr. Mayor, please excuse me. I thought that was a sign-in sheet.
Okay.
Just listening.
Ed Dutko.
Am I the last one on the sign-up sheet?
No, you're not.
Okay. You know what I don't like? I don't like the 6 p.m. meetings because it really inhibits people from coming here. You know, people are working, they get out of work at 5 o'clock. You know, you should have the meetings at least at 7. You know, for me, I'm against this proposal. I think a lot of folks in Bristol are against it. I talked to some folks today at the gas station. I talked to folks at the library. We went to a clothing store. I went to a couple grocery stores. I met no one that was for this. You know, it's like the man on the street interviews. I've met no one that thought that this was a good idea. And like the last gentleman said, you know, you did pay for a consultant. And he said the plan was doomed. I mean, even he said that like a public piazza. I mean, there's Brackett Park right there. You want another piazza? Like a lot of times Mr. Storch will ask questions, well, who's going to pay for the upkeep of the piazza and stuff? I think if you jump the gun and go ahead with this, oh, I bet you that deadline will come and go again with Renaissance. And I mean, how many deadlines are you going to give them? I bet that deadline will come and go. But if you go ahead with this and you build that road through there, it could change the plans for any other developer that might come in here in the future. The economy's getting better now. They've proved nothing so far. And I hope somebody on the council, you know, I could predict, I think you're all going to go for it right now, but I wish somebody would have a, what do you call it, huevos or whatever, you know, to say, Jesus, this is not what the people want. No, I would say, no, I'm not going along with this. You know, it's so ridiculous. It's like me saying, you know what, I owe my mortgage. I've owed it for a few months. I've owed it for a few more months. I call up my bank and I tell them, you know what, I'm going to be late. And then they say, well, how long are you going to be? Oh, give me a few more months. Give me a few more months. I'll be late. And then at the last minute, I tell them, hey, by the way, can you come over and repave my driveway and do some landscaping and fix the windows? You know what they would tell me? No way. It's ridiculous. Like I said, I'm against this, and I hope that at least somebody votes against it. I look at number 5 on these motions to be considered. I mean, what does number 5 mean? Such other provisions as may be necessary to resolve any other open issues between parties. What does that mean? You know what I mean? I'd be against it. If I was sitting on the council, I would vote no. I wouldn't go along with this. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Sean?
Good evening. So, am I correct to believe that now part of this project is a public project, so the public will have access to some of the information about the public funding that's going to be going? Because I'd like to know how much it's going to cost Bristol taxpayers to build a road through there, to provide a parking garage on the state and on the municipal level for the fast track that's coming to Bristol. And I'd also like to know if we're retrofitting the sewers for smart growth. If we are, I would like to see some kind of estimate as to what that would cost, something comparable. And you don't have to give me an answer now. I'd like to see something in the newspaper, or if someone can provide me a little bit of that information, I think that would be great. If it's not a public project, then I don't want to see any public money go into it at all. No infrastructure. But if you want taxpayer money, then I think you should be disclosing what the taxpayer's on the hook for. And that doesn't just include, you know, the density that we're building around the outside the Depot Square area, so that we can get funding for mass transit here in Bristol, so that we can have the gravy train come to Bristol. I'm just talking about the actual infrastructure, the things that have been admitted to, but we don't know the details of. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And that's all the public participation that I had signed up. Item number 2.
To convene into executive session to discuss the negotiations of additional amendments to the preferred developer agreement with Renaissance Downtowns at Bristol LLC regarding the Depot Square project.
Okay, let me ask the council. I think we're all set in the executive session, but we put it up on here just in case one of the council wanted to go in and talk about anything in regards to the contract and negotiations. Does any council want to go into executive session? Okay, so item number 3.
to reconvene as public session to discuss proposed motions concerning amendments to the preferred developer agreement between the City of Bristol, the Bristol Downtown Development Corporation, and Renaissance Downtowns at Bristol LLC regarding the Depot Square project, and to take any action as necessary.
We have a motion, Council Board.
Yes, I have a motion. I hereby move that the mayor or acting mayor be authorized to negotiate an amendment of the preferred developer agreement between the City of Bristol and Renaissance Downtowns at Bristol LLC to include the following terms: an extension of the date for the initial closing and the approval of the developer's financing, leasing, and development plan to no later than March 31st, 2015. Item number 2, a requirement that Building B of Phase 1 of the development be the first building constructed. Item 3, a provision that if there is no initial closing by March 31st, 2015, the city shall be permitted to solicit and consider other development proposals for the Depot Square property. Item 4, the provision that the city may construct and/or fund the construction of a piazza along with associated utilities and infrastructure as part of the development of Building B of Phase 1, and Item 5, such other provisions as may be necessary to resolve any other open issues between the parties. I further move that the mayor or acting mayor report back to the City Council upon conclusion of the negotiations or at the regular City Council meeting in December. I'm going to ask for a second.
Second.
Motion made second. Discussion.
I'm usually not the first one, but I want to start by saying that item 5, I'll put on the record that I agree with Mr. Dudcote that I'm not quite sure what that means. And one thing that had been discussed in the past, and I'm going to just say this so I think the audience gets a feel for what we intended for number 5, was the current preferred developer agreement is about 26 or 27 pages, and I think it has 5 or 6. Is this the 7th amendment that we're talking about tonight, or the 6th?
If you'd like, I can ask Attorney Olin to come up and speak.
That's all right. I'm just letting the audience.
The 7th.
This is the 7th. So the point is, there's a 26 or 27 page agreement with Renaissance Downtowns and 6 amendments currently. This tonight that we're talking about is the 7th amendment. So there are some things within the contract that may need to be changed. There's lots of dates and deadlines. And so the fact that we're giving them till March 31st for the financing, leasing, and development of the Phase 1 agreement changes some other deadlines. No one has looked at that contract completely yet to say, well, paragraph 3, that date needs to change. Paragraph 17, that date needs to change. And I'm just letting you know that that's what is intended by paragraph 5.
No one's looked at it.
Well, no, I
don't mean to say...
No, let me jump in here real quick.
Go ahead.
Because I knew that was coming.
Don't vote yes.
Our attorneys have looked at the contract in detail. Attorney Olin, would you mind just coming and speaking to item number 5? I know we spoke about why this was in there.
The general language in paragraph 5 of the motion speaks to a number of issues. Mary, the issues you highlighted are some of them. There are some other issues that we've discussed in executive session with the council that are part of a negotiation over a contract that it would be better not to negotiate those issues in public, but to do that when we sit down with the developer to try and amend the contract. And that's the reason for some general language in there.
Let me assure everyone that this is not one of those statements that we must pass it to see what it says. I guarantee you that.
And I was trying to make that point. And I was inartful. By saying that no one knows, I didn't mean to say that. I meant that if throughout the negotiations with Renaissance over this amendment, some date changes, it may need to change something else in another paragraph, and we don't know that at this moment. That's all I meant, and I just wanted to say that it's not quite as general as it seems. It's to address perhaps inconsistencies that might be in the contract by amending it. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman?
Nothing in particular.
I just wanted to say that, as far as the issue of how much money we spend on utilities, infrastructure improvements on the property, the city does own the property. Renaissance is preferred developer. In the end, the city's going to maintain some ownership of some of that property. But any public roads we put in or anything along those lines, rights of way, that is our responsibility as the city to provide certain amendments, certain amenities to it.
Very briefly for me, one of the first thoughts that came to me when I first saw this, these various motions was I didn't feel that the part of the BCDC's responsibility was to approve not only the site plan but the financing portion of this. I think we have one but not the other right now. I want to see if the city is going to invest for the infrastructure and the piazza. I want to see some firm numbers on that. I also want to see the financing portion of this as well. If there are to be partners, part of this agreement calls for who are the partners, and what are they. We want to make sure that Mr. Monty is still the controlling partner. That's as this agreement says, and he has the authority to make the decisions. So I think at this point it's somewhat premature, so to speak, as to we only have half the package here and not the whole package.
Councilman?
Yeah, and I agree with Henry. It's kind of vague the way it's proposed, so I'd like to see more clarity as we go along.
Councilwoman?
No comments. I just want to reiterate that how the motion is worded. It does say that it's authorizing the mayor or acting mayor to negotiate an amendment. It doesn't mean that it's a done deal at this point, that both parties are now going to come together to discuss these terms. And I also just want to draw everybody's attention to item 4, where it says a provision that the city may construct and/or fund. It doesn't say that we're going to. All of this is going to flow from the negotiations and how they develop over the course of what I assume is going to be a pretty quickly scheduled set of discussions. So there's a lot of pieces in play here, but I think the most important thing is to continue the dialogue to see if this can work. And if it's going to work, what are the components? And if it's not going to work, then we're going to know that. Renaissance has the opportunity to say that this isn't going to work either. So that's the point of continuing the dialogue. And I think that that's an important point to bring forward.
Thank you. And let me say that the piazza and the infrastructure are tied to Building 1B. So those will not go forward if the financing is not in place to put together Building 1B. The city's not going to put in infrastructure if the building is not going up. So that being said, Councilman, Senator-elect, I guess, is your correct title, State Senator-elect. What do I call you? I guess that would, in my opinion, that takes care of the financing part, because without the financing going forward, then we don't put in the piazza. So I'm comfortable with that. Let me say that since my term has begun, we have been working diligently to get Depot Square developed. We've been working, leaving no stone unturned, even as far as bringing in an outside consultant. It was mentioned Gourmet New York. We're doing our due diligence. This is just the next step, again, leaving no stone unturned and doing everything in our power to assist a developer to develop that land, short of investing money into the building itself, which we are not talking about here. We're talking about infrastructure, not the building. So I will support this. I think it's part of the city moving forward and getting our own downtown developed, and hopefully very shortly we will have a contract that's renegotiated and moving Building 1B forward. That's all of our goal, to get 1B forward. If need be, I will call a city council meeting every week to get this thing going. But I think at this point, this is our next step that needs to be done. Now we'll let the lawyers in the BDDC take over from here and see what they can come up with. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I'll just say on your point there, I want to commend you and I want to commend all of us up here, just so everybody out in the public knows, these discussions, as we've come up with these amendments, we've all been very cooperative, we've been on the same page, and the main focus for all of us has been to move the project forward in a way that makes sense for the city without overburdening anybody. We're working hard together to make sure that that happens, and we have every intention of keeping everyone updated. And I want to thank the mayor and I want to thank the rest of my colleagues because this is an important project for us all to work cooperatively on, and we've been successful doing that to date. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for roll call. Starting on our left.
Yes.
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 No. Yes.
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Have a good night.